This is Oromo Press. I'm your host, Keran Sobia. I have a guest with me today, Aminata Diop from Tamaji magazine, and we're going to talk to. Uh, so, if you could just introduce yourself to our audience, your name, where you're from.
My name is Aminata. I'm from Senegal. I grew up in Senegal. I live in New York City, and I'm a published author and editor-in-chief of Tamaji magazine, a magazine that strives to facilitate communication between English-speaking and French-speaking people of the African diaspora through the arts, literature, and cinema.
So, thank you so much. What do you do? How did you end up founding Tamaji magazine? What inspired you to found the magazine, and what's the purpose?
Um, it grew out of a need. Basically, I noticed that a lot of African writers and artists like me didn't have a platform where they could showcase their talent. So I originally started it as a blog for people to talk about what they do, to write or to display their music or their little short films. And what we do on our end is we translate it to French or to English and double their audience. And our readership is growing. We started in September 2012, and now we're at the next phase where we're trying to switch it into a digital flipbook style type of magazine you can subscribe to. We're also trying to create on that same platform the first virtual library showcasing African underrepresented writers from Africa and the diaspora that is abroad, in the U.S. and France and anywhere else.
Yeah. So, what does African underrepresented writers mean to you?
But just, when you're a typical, I guess, Tanzanian, Senegalese, or even Haitian kid who's 17 years old, and you might be the next Hemingway or the next Toni Morrison, but you don't know where to get your agent, or if you're an artist, the next venue and whatnot, you don't have anyone to go to, and we're that platform to go to. If you want to, send us an excerpt of your novel, we basically publish it, and we have our own connections with agents here. I'm trying to create, just do that work for them. That's
What kind of readers are you trying to attract? And what's your goal in terms of like a sort of a pan-African kind of theme, or to bring people from different African cultures together? What do you think? What's your role, or the role of your magazine in that?
Uh, well, uh, Africa is often all like too painted into something that it's not, and the world outside barely has a good idea of who are the writers and the artists and the movie makers in Africa. And we ourselves don't know much about each other. For example, a Senegalese person doesn't know much about Ethiopia, or vice versa, or South
Or
Africa, or
Romo,
Kenya,
Romia, right?
Romania as well. But we're trying to fix that. What we're trying to do is to be inclusive of every region that has a minority, a black minority. So, for example, maybe the people in Gambia would like to know more about people who live in Harlem, African Americans, but they don't. And what we're trying to do is have a platform where an African American can write, and where a Gambian person can write, and they're equally perceived as authors and respected at that. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do, at least.
That's
And
an,
not only like writing, but like also the other arts.
yeah. Can you talk about more about the arts, the other arts, and how you try to promote relationships or sharing African stories between African diaspora members from everywhere?
Yeah. For example, cinema is blowing up in Africa. It's been there for a while, but now people are more and more interested about what's going on with African movie makers, from Cisse to Nana Keita to, just recent great movies about from the African diaspora. Um, Recently, for example, my brother sent me a short film that he saw um, called Taxi Cab Turanga about the life of taxi cab drivers here in New York City that are immigrants. And I saw that, and I thought it was a very good piece that people didn't know about. So I posted it on Tamaji, and I posted it on Cineweb, which is a website that I write for sometimes, who has over 7 million views. I think every month or something. So, just that created a huge, like, kind of a buzz for that short film, which is always good because it creates a buzz for the actor, it creates a buzz for the person who wrote it, the screenplay, the producers. That's how we're trying to change the arts in and out of Africa from those talents. And yeah, that's just cinema. And recently I was a panelist at Columbia about a talk entitled African Filmmaking in the Digital Age, where we talked about distribution of African cinema through online media. And that's kind of what we've been doing, is we've been trying to share talent that is underrepresented and that ought to be seen and respected like any other.
So again, you are an entrepreneur and a published author.
Kind of.
I think you have a lot of experience to share with young Oromians, East Africans who would like to, understand what's happening on the western coast of Africa, or people from west coast. We are all similar, but the experience is helpful. Can you talk a little bit more about your own inspirations in starting the Tamaji magazine?
What inspired me to start
Yeah,
it?
what inspired you to start?
Um, like I said, I'm a writer, and though it wasn't that hard for me to find a publishing house to publish my work at first. I realized that if you don't have a certain setup, if you're not lucky enough to be privileged and live in like the U.S. or other spots, you might not get the same opportunities as I did,
Right.
which I think is unfair because, it'd be great to know to find out about the next Basquiat's and the next Césaires and all that. And, Mahatma Gandhi says that you have to be the change you want to see in the world. So, I didn't see anybody doing that, so I did it.
Absolutely, very inspirational indeed. In
Thank you.
terms of you know the your work, the writing that you do, apart from Tamaji magazine and including Tamaji magazine, if you could just describe to our listeners what kind of genre,
What do I
what
write
type
about?
of what kind of issues you address in your writings and in the magazine.
Um, in the magazine, it's usually collaborative, so people submit their work, I edit it, and I publish it. Or I find, maybe the next, I find a fashion designer contacts me about his or her collection, and I feature it. So it's mostly collaborative. It's not me, but I personally write fiction, and the first fiction piece I wrote was called The Mirth of College, and I wrote it under a pen name, Amy Barkin, while I was attending Hamilton College, and that just had to do about education in the 21st century. It was a satire.
Yeah. Why did you pick like a pen name instead of like using your own real name?
Well, two things. First, it's a marketing strategy. It's very hard to pronounce my name in America for an English-speaking audience. But second, purely superstitious. My dad didn't want me to use my name, so I used another one. I used my spiritual guide's last name or nickname, and I used, my nickname is Ami, but my American friends, when they see it, they usually say Amy. So I just stuck to Amy.
easier for people who
Yeah, yeah.
are
But
in
you
this
know, for my
culture.
second work, it's gonna be my name. That's it.
Yeah. Can you describe your work, the published work that you've done before, and what you're doing currently?
Yeah. The first work was The Mirth of College, and it was a satirical piece about education in the 21st century. And it's a novel. It's a short one, and it's entertaining, is what it is. It's a very entertaining novel, and people have
Yeah.
enjoyed reading it. I've gotten actually really good reviews on it. But the second one, I'd like it to be more mature, and my writing has improved a lot. And this one I'm very proud of because it's definitely about my generation of African people and
Yeah.
how we either leave or stick to our
Yeah,
values
the
in the
younger,
21st
you're
century.
referring to the younger generation of Africans, right?
Yeah,
You are definitely the first.
Africans in their 20s
Yeah,
and their
absolutely,
30s, so young
absolutely.
adults.
Yeah, young adults. That's an incredible story. You're a published author, and you're running a magazine, Tamaji magazine, and you're also a professional writer
Right.
who happens to be a female. There aren't that many. I, I might be wrong.
Oh.
Women writers from Africa. And what's it like for you to be a young entrepreneur and writer? Is that a challenge or an opportunity? How do you think about that?
It's
What do people think about you? Like, if you go to Senegal, you're a writer. Uh, what would be their take?
I'm usually more concerned about, at the end of the day, am I satisfied with what I do, than what usually what my peers think. And going to Senegal, I think whether in Senegal or New York or Amsterdam or anywhere, people are um, usually admire people who wake up and do what they want to do and make a living off of it. And it's a type of ambition that's not too encouraged in the world that we live in today in this generation. But my personality, I have a personality that doesn't even allow me to uh, to do something other than what I feel is right, for not for me, but for the human good in general. And so, but the thing I'm sort of good at is writing. And if I can do that, if I can help people, if I can make people happy or just, change something through that, then that's what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah. How did you get into writing?
It's just something I had a talent
What
for.
age? What kind of starting did you have?
I, uh, when, when I went to high school, we read "Their Eyes Were Watching God" by Zora Neale Hurston, and then our teacher said to write an alternate, like a different ending, and I did. And then she called me and said I had a talent for it, for writing, and that's when I started taking it more seriously. Then I applied to a school that shaped writers. That was, Hamilton College is the second best school in the U.S. in terms of writers, and I pursued that, and I find solace in writing. It's personally very therapeutic and fun. It's a lot of fun to write. So to create another universe it's very fun. So that's why I write.
Yeah. Can you talk more about your experience at Hamilton College and what you were doing, and how it supported your writing endeavor?
Yeah. I went to Hamilton, experienced the college experience like any kid. Um, just dealt with it, except that it was very cold. I think it was very cold. It was, Hamilton is not too far from Canada, so
It's upstate New York.
yeah. And I'm Muslim, so I don't drink, so I didn't go out that much. I would stay in my room most of the time. The parties I went to, really, I acted drunk. I was never drunk. I would just watch people. So it's kind of like a lot of inspiration came from that, and from interacting with everybody, just not being discriminative of you know people based on their background or their race or anything. I just wanted to see humans for what they were. That's all. And that's what writing is about. Writing is about, you know, writing it's about depicting a beautiful picture of the human condition, which isn't always beautiful. The condition.
Right. So, in terms of culture, you are probably in America, like a lot of the schools would like to go out and do a lot of different things that are probably not culturally or religiously sanctioned for you. Did it impact you? How did it impact you? How did you see that? Like, was there a peer pressure, like, let's go out and
No, I'm my own person, and I've traveled a lot, so uh, I never put people's judgments and peer pressure over my values. I do what I want to do. It might sound wrong to say I do what I want to do, but I mean it in a sense that I stick to my values, and how I was raised is more important to me than what people tell me to do.
Okay, let's talk about Tamaji magazine again. One of your best work. I've gotten a chance to look at it. Some of the articles that appeared in that. Well, maybe if you could elaborate on the types of things that you publish, like in terms of the text and the multimedia material, and if you have anything that you like in that, like, things that you want people to know more about.
Well, my love is fiction, so I definitely like it when people read fiction pieces on Tamaji and enjoy them.
Yeah.
But I, publish anything from fiction to nonfiction to poems, and people sometimes have thoughts that are interesting. I let them talk about it and I publish it if it's well written and it has a purpose. But other than the writing part, we definitely try to showcase short films, fashion designers, also collections from African fashion designers who want a bigger audience. And every article is in French and English, so we try to kind of make the audience really big for whoever is submitting their works. I think the biggest challenge is usually saying no to submissions, because some people might think that just because it rhymes it's a poem, or some people might think that just because they write it's fiction.
Right.
When there are rules to everything.
Yeah.
But I usually publish. I think I'm proud to say that I usually publish talented, good stuff. I make sure it's good before it's out there.
So it's a multilingual magazine, basically.
Bilingual.
Bilingual? Is that bilingual?
Yeah, I'm hoping it can be multilingual soon if we get enough sponsors, because the 6 languages that are shared by the Africans and the African diaspora are English, French, Swahili, Arabic, Portuguese, and Spanish.
And Oromo. Add to that because it's the third largest in Africa. Okay.
But these are the 6 languages that are official in the African Union.
Right.
And they're spoken by also at least 2/3 of the world. So these are languages where, I speak French, but a person from France speaks French. A person from Belgium also speaks French. And a person, from Côte d'Ivoire speaks French.
Yeah.
So these are languages that are not only spoken.
You're counting people who speak those languages outside Africa
Of
as well, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
so looking at the African diaspora and the languages they share, those are the most spoken. So we want to create, if Tamaji became bigger than it already is, then that's where I see it.
Yeah. So, again, like your rationale, reason for choosing French and English, right? French and English is to reach the Africans who are Lusophone, Vatican, and Anglophone, like speak English and French, right? To reach as many.
Yeah, and it's also because it's the two languages I speak. I can't
Right.
edit something in Spanish
Right.
well or in
Which one are
or
you comfortable with? Like, from
I'm
French
fluent.
and
I'm
English.
fluent in French and English. I speak Arabic and Spanish conversationally, but I'm not
Right.
excellent at writing.
Yeah.
So
Senegal is a very interesting African country that
yeah,
produced big name writers like
yes,
Senghor. Uh, I think I remember it from back in the days, and definitely you were very lucky to come from there. And
yes.
my question is, is there a writer in Senegal or a Senegalese writer whose work you try to emulate or sort of model your work on?
Um, um, I definitely no. I don't try to emulate writers. I try to have my own
Style?
style.
Okay.
But I'm influenced by a lot of writers.
Yeah.
Most of I'm influenced by Césaire, who comes from the Caribbean, like the Antilles. So Césaire is a big influence on me, but also
Can you talk about him a little bit more? What
Césaire.
is his focus?
Césaire is one of the precursors of the Negritude movement in the 1960s, which was a genre about civilizations of the Black world
Right.
through literature. Basically, he wrote Cahiers d'un retour au pays natal, which I'm saying in French because the English translation doesn't come up right there. But I love his style. But I'm also very influenced by American writers like David Foster Wallace and a little bit of Hemingway.
Why?
I like the way they write. A writer is a writer.
Yeah, I mean, like, into what appealed to you from their work?
They write. I think Hemingway writes beautifully. I think David Foster Wallace writes humanely about
what does that mean?
just just about the human condition. You can delve into any page of David Foster Wallace and books and relate, at least as a writer, I think. I don't know. It's, writing is really just a question of whether you like the book or not.
Yeah.
I just write their books. I like their books. I've read a lot of books,
Yeah.
but I like the way they write. But my favorite is definitely Césaire. I don't think anyone compares to him.
Very
And
good.
he's a poet, so I like Césaire. And in the same way, I'm very influenced by Bob Dylan, who's a singer, an American singer, but who writes like a poet. He's a songwriter, so he's a writer.
So you like poetry as a form
Yeah,
of
yeah,
expression?
yeah, it's
Okay.
okay.
So again, I asked you about your style of writing already. Like, you are not writing academic
No,
material. Some people find academic writing to be dry or boring and stuff like that. Why did you choose like a style like that? Fiction,
I don't know how to write about it.
creative.
Yeah, because creative is there's a big high that comes off creating your own stuff. Creating a whole universe is almost, it's not divine, but it's close to it.
Yeah. So here I am, an East African Oromian guy, trying
Right.
to interview a writer and published author from Senegal, West Africa. Part of the reason I'm doing this interview with you is to share your experience with the youth from East Africa, the Oromian youth who are in the U.S. as well as who are in Africa. I personally observed that there is a gap, like, in terms of the platform of networking among young African writers or thinkers or creators, innovators. It's not very appealing. If you want, would you like to talk more about that and how would you overcome geographic distances, or sort of like individuals are there doing their work, but they're not getting together and expressing themselves or promoting a sort of an African art. Uh, do you have a magic fix for that?
Absolutely. Well, this is the digital age, So the internet, anything, you can put anything you want in the internet, but it's better to have a platform in the internet that caters to you and what you do, and that knows that there's talent out there and that recruits it and that rewards it. And the Tamaji is there for that, for people who know that they can write, or who know that they can make movies, or who know that they can paint, and that they can change the world with their art. And with the virtual, Tamaji magazine itself is a free subscription-based magazine, so it's going to be like just an email. But we're going to incorporate a virtual library called the Kemet Library, where people will have the opportunity or the choice to either have their work out there for free or for sale. So this is something only the digital age permits, because anybody can submit an ebook or a work, whether they're in Somalia and or America or France,
Or
or Romania, and send it at one address and we got it,
Absolutely.
Whereas it's much, it was tougher to do back in the day,
Absolutely. So the digital change facilitates communication. So again, with Tamaji magazine, in terms of the audience that you reach out to, do you have an estimated figure for your audience? Where do they come from? Demographics and stuff like that. What kind of people are interested in the kinds of issues and topics that you deal with.
For now, we have most of our audience is African American, and but also Africans that are outside of Africa, that are in France and here, and Europe and all that. And so some of them are in Senegal. A lot of them are in Italy, actually. Some are in Kenya. Ghana is also have a lot of Ghanaians. We have about 3,200 fans on Facebook.
That's a lot.
And we just started in September 2012. So we want that to grow in a sense that where it can be inclusive of Africans that are in the continent who really need it more than those of us who are here, So that's the direction I'm heading.
Very good. So
hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah, so you have a social media presence. So you talked about how your or followers or people who are fans on Facebook. Can you talk about that? Like, how do you promote your content after something is published on? What's the impact of social media? I mean, like.
It's really good. Usually you publish the article and you can just post it on your Facebook page and then on Twitter, and people check those all the time. So that's really a great way to do it. But there's also strategic advertisements. You can post it in blogs read exclusively by Kenyans or exclusively by Senegalese people or by Iranians, and cater to that audience and have them come to Tamaji. So that's one way to make it happen.
Yeah. So you have staff members. You are the editor-in-chief of Tamaji magazine. Is that the right description?
I don't have staff members. I have collaborators.
Collaborators.
People usually people just collaborate. People send their stuff.
So
I get a lot of advice.
Free collaboration.
Yeah, it's about knowledge,
Right.
Knowledge should be completely free and qualitative.
Yeah. So do you see where do you see Tamaji magazine going in 5 years, or what's your aim? Are you gonna be trying to monetize, or what's your purpose? I mean.
Tamaji is going to hopefully create a digital revolution in the world of arts and literature in the African continent and beyond for the African youth that relates to the arts and literature. And so that's where we're headed. In terms of monetizing it, we can only do that through the virtual library, the Kemet library, and through advertising. So sponsors usually just want a page on a magazine, and that's how we plan to monetize it. But definitely, I don't plan on selling copies of Tamaji to anyone. It shall remain free.
Yeah, this interview I think basically symbolizes the connections that needs to be made between East Africans and West Africans and North Africans and Southern Africa. Any networking in terms of like, continentally.
Hmm.
At least people are talking about Pan Africanism and so on. So that is important. My question to you, it might be a funny question to you. Have you heard of like a people called Oromo before? Like, did you get a chance to hear about the people?
Not before I met you. Really, to be honest with you, because people just look at Ethiopia. It's Ethiopia,
Yeah.
and then this is what's good about social networking and Twitter and outlets like Facebook and Twitter is you meet people
Yeah.
who come from regions, not just the country, but
Right,
of
right.
specific regions, and can teach you more about their culture because Africa is a huge
Continent.
continent and
It's not
it's
a country.
not. You're right, and it's not just you know, people aren't just don't just identify as Senegalese or just as Ethiopian. They identify as a particular maybe religion or a social group,
Right.
and so that's one of the rewarding aspects of being, I guess, the editor of a magazine like Tamaji, is I get to learn as much as ex- showcase the knowledge I learn as well.
Yeah. So transitioning off from Tamaji magazine, just from your personal life, in terms of what kind of music do you like? How do you?
The music I like, well, in my country, I love Yusundur. He's my favorite artist, but I absolutely can't spend a day without listening to Nas, or which he's a very well-known hip hop artist, and I love the way he writes.
Senegalese, right?
No, Nas is a hip hop artist from New York, from
Right.
Queensbridge. So he's very well known and respected, and I really enjoy listening to his music. And in the same, um, well, I also like Kanan, of course.
Why? Kanan is the
I
the Somali hip hop singer from Canada, right?
Yeah,
So what appeals to you from his work?
he's very young, and he he gives a great story um, of his history and where he comes from
Yeah.
through hip hop. And he made it to having his song Waving Flag licensed by Coca-Cola. So he's a living success story for Somalis who want to follow that route.
Right.
Um, and I like his early work too. Um, so there's that about Kanan that I
Yeah.
like.
How about the Senegalese artist, the singer? Do you have a favorite?
I like Youssou and I like Dahaji.
Yeah.
Dahaji are hip hop. They're a band that is very well established and
You,
known in Africa. They've even performed at the Glastonbury Festival. I also like Youssou who um, kind of is the living example of um, I don't know, Senegalese music
yeah.
at best, and he
Yeah.
represents it around the world. So that's what I like about him.
So is there a specific
I
track
also
or
love
album
I
that you
also love
like
Bob
from his
Dylan.
work?
What's that?
Is there a specific track or album that you like from the
I
Senegalese?
like everything by Youssou
Okay.
Like everything.
What
I'm a big fan of
is
his.
the what category of songs like?
He does mbalax, which is a typical. It's a Senegalese musical genre.
That means
Uh,
like what is it
Mbalax
approximate?
is more. It's very upbeat, and it's really all I can say about it. You really have to listen to it. It's an
Absolutely.
African style of music. So, but it's great. He has a lot of sayings that are very deep, and that's what I like about Yusundur. He's very like, it's the oral tradition when you listen to him.
Yeah.
Right.
So I could see that you're listening to so many different musicians from different cultures. Bob Dylan, you said, the Senegalese singers,
Yeah.
and Kenan. You seem to be navigating between a lot of different cultures. When young Africans come to the U.S., there is an American culture. We can't think of an American culture as a singular culture. It's a multiple cultures. But is there? Do you find it difficult to navigate or to 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 inhabit this multiple uh, cultures at the same time, or do you find it more interesting to be that way?
Yeah, I love to discover new cultures, so it's never a hard time for me. I only get challenged when the other culture doesn't want doesn't want me to know about them. But I always love to discover new cultures, so it's always a delight.
So, if you have a message about anything that we left, you could. What would that be like? Is there anything that we would like to talk about?
Well, in about a week or less, I will release our first Kickstarter project for Tamaji to turning into a flip book style type of digital book that will be available for everybody, whether they're in New York or in Senegal, and that will be downloadable and free of charge. So that's one thing I'd really like people to check out, because it's a great fun video and a great explanation of what we will do soon.
Yeah.
If they're interested in, of course, in Tamaji and what we do. It's
Yeah.
the
Can you
next
talk
step.
a little bit more about the Kickstarter project for our audience?
Sure. Well, like I said before, we're trying to create a digital revolution in the world of arts and literature, and we're at a stage where we are inclusive of African Americans and Africans that are outside of the continent, but we really like to include people who are in Haiti and in the islands, and who are in Africa. So the next step, might involve a little bit of money to be able to do the strategic advertisements in those places, which is why we're trying to raise about $7,000 to make it happen. It's really a small investment, but I think it's a necessary investment that will create much, much more than it would if we didn't invest that kind of money.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on a Romo Press radio show podcast.
Thank you.
We appreciate that you came on and shared your experience with the youth, Romo youth and youth from East Africa.
No problem.
Absolutely, we hope that people are going to learn a lot of stuff from this. And if there is any music from Yasundura that you want to invite, we're going to invite that and conclude the interview.
Yeah, just Google Yusundur and you'll get the best music you've ever listened to, ever. It's the best.
Thank you so much. I'm Anita Diop from Tamaji Magazine. Good luck with your work, and we wish you success. Have a great day.
Léeg-léeg ma geesu ci li ma weesu léeg-léeg ma rekk walla sax di bàkku fu gune yi fecc dama leen di teete wax ni mu ma neexi ma bëgg leen doo damay telu kuule nali bu ma maaka damay telu kuule gën di yàgg xel mi bel ni tànk lu ma gën di màgg dellu tuuti tànk li ma dundee li ma weesu day dellu seet li ma dundee li ma weesu day dellu seet ma ni seetal léeg-léeg ma geesu ci li ma weesu léeg-léeg ma réccu walla sax di bàkku fugu nii fecc dama leen di teete wax nu ma neexe ma bëgg leen Help me, bank. Luma gën di màgg